So we said that George Washington stopped at 2 terms. There was no constitutional requirement whatsoever for him to step down at that point. In fact, with his popularity, he probably could have continued running for president and just kept the office until such time as he decided either he no longer wanted to be president and didn't run again, or he could have basically stayed there for the remainder of his natural life. But Washington had said that no honest man need be president more than twice. And so we're going to have a rarity in the world at this point in time. We are going to see the peaceful transition of power. Now, this is something that we as a nation have prided ourselves on for 200 years now, that when one president's term is over, there is no big deal. It passes to the next one. Sometimes you'll have the president not very happy about that and will not even, talk with the successor, but it's always just been that they move on. So in this case, Alexander Hamilton was probably the more logical choice, excuse me, to become the next president. But the problem was he had lost some popularity. He had his financial plan in place, which in the long term was the best bet for the United States, but in the short term did have some, unpleasant repercussions for him. He was not very, very popular. And so, as such, at this point in time, there was no chance that he could have been elected as president. And the sad thing is that while he probably could have been president at some point in the future, he does die in a duel with Aaron Burr in the not too far off future. So his plan had made him unpopular, and as such, he was not going to be the next president. The next president was going to be Mr. John Adams. Okay, now Adams had been the vice president under George Washington. It is important to remember that at this point in time under the Constitution, the way it worked was whoever came in first in the Electoral College became president. Now, Washington had been unanimously selected both times. But the plan was whoever was first would be president, whoever came in second would then become vice president. And the idea was that whoever had come in second would put aside any petty personal differences and would simply rule for the good of the nation. They did go through and change that. You might think about it this way. Here we are in 2020. In the last presidential election in 2016, if this plan had still been in place, we would have had President Trump in office, and his vice president would have been Vice President Hillary Clinton. And I leave it to your imagination as to how well or poorly that would have worked. So John Adams, very able statesman, a very smart individual, not a great reader of people. He is someone who does have a tendency to rub people the wrong way. He is very, very convinced that he knows best. He's going to win 71 to 68. Second place is going to be Thomas Jefferson. So the vice president and the secretary of state are the two top vote getters in the electoral college this time around. Jefferson is going to become vice president. Now, they're not exactly going to be the closest of friends, and you'll see in the re-election bid for John Adams is going to become our first one-term president. He's going to lose to Thomas Jefferson in 4 years. You'll see that the campaigning was less than polite, is the nicest way I can put that. So you have John Adams as the new president, and you have Mr. Thomas Jefferson as vice president. Now, Adams had a very disliked rival in Mr. Hamilton. And Hamilton actually worked very hard. He plotted with Adams' cabinet against the president, trying to undermine his presidency. He did not want Adams to continue on. He didn't want him as president. Some of this could have been that he wanted to be president, but he really didn't want Adams to be there. So he's working very hard to undermine Adams' presidency through the cabinet. And at the same time, Adams has a very vicious political rival in his vice president. So Adams is not going to have a very easy go of it. If you're looking just at the domestic politics issue of it, Adams is going to have both his cabinet kind of working against him and his vice president working against him. And it really should come as no surprise, therefore, that he ended up as a one-term president when you add in his personality. So you have all this going on the domestic side. Then let's throw in some international problems. All right. We also now have a situation dealing with France that could quite literally explode into war. Now, if you recall, it was not that long ago we almost went to war with Great Britain. Well, now we're facing the exact same situation, except we might go to war with France. And so you put all of these things together, and John Adams is not going to have a very easy-going presidency. He's going to have some difficulties in regards to everything, and he's not going to get reelected. Was he someone who was capable of doing the job? Yes, absolutely. Was he the right person at the right time? I leave that up to you. You can do your own research on that one. But he is going to be an individual that had to pick up the mantle of leadership from George Washington. And you can only imagine being the president who has to follow George Washington. Was he going to be seen as great as Washington? No, absolutely not. Did he do his best? Yes, I would argue that he really did do his best under very trying circumstances, but it wasn't going to be enough, you're going to see, to get him elected.